Hello friends and bees and friends who are also bees, and welcome to this Indie Thursday stream. I apologise for the delay in getting started. It is because I was working on an assignment and lost track of time and abruptly realised that I had to make dinner. And part of dinner involved scraping the skin off of the fish, which I hate doing. Even when the fish is cooked, it's still a nightmare, and that took almost as long as making the actual dinner did because I'm useless. Anyway, we're here now. We're starting a bit later than usual, but it's fine. We're still going. And I'm going to try and go for it'll be 2 hours and 40 minutes. But again, it really depends on how tired I am. I've not got urgent work to do for tomorrow, but I do have urgent work to do in general, so we'll see. Anyway, when we left off last week, we had made our way into Hinamizawa, where we felt drawn to explore and find out what's been going on and what happened all those years ago. And in Hinamizawa, we met somebody who calls herself Mion, as well as a couple of other friends who we've never met before, who all seem a bit dead inside and who all seem to have different reasons for coming to Hinamizawa. So let us swap over to the gameplay. With luck, my computer won't crash today. Not crash, my monitor won't crash. Knock on wood, or knock on plastic desk as the case may be. Right, let's go. I think just gonna check, but I'm pretty certain, yeah, we read those. Cool. Oh, there we go. What did I fucking say? It heard me say, boy howdy, I sure do hope that my monitor doesn't crash, and then crashed. I've got 5,000 emails. Okay, go to myself and turn my volume down and go to chat only and apply, and there we go. I chugged the beer down in one big gulp. The aftertaste was equally terrible. But even so, I belched out the fierce gathering in my throat and eventually found the resolve to push myself forward. I took a deep breath and pulled a business card out of the notebook in my breast pocket and held it up where everyone could see. Alright then, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Ryunosuke Arakawa. I'm a well-known freelance writer. Well-known, you say? The woman dressed in traditional clothing chuckled to herself. Shut up, it's the beer talking, okay? I specialise in matters for the occult. In fact, this month's issue of Weekly 7 is the Ghostly Village Special Edition, written by yours truly. It's nice to meet you all. Ghostly Village Special Edition? So you're the one who wrote that article? Pardon me. The young woman seemed completely disinterested at first, but she appeared surprised all of a sudden and looked up to respond. You know of it? Yes, I read it earlier. Same here. I read that special edition too. Covered a lot of stories from several different locations. It was really interesting. Why, thank you. Required a lot of research, so I ran into many difficulties writing it. But hearing your praise makes it all worthwhile. Being praised for my articles made me hold my head up high. But the woman in the kimono had a lukewarm reaction, simply tilting her head to the side as if to say, is that so? The Weekly 7? Wow. I suppose that's some popular magazine everyone's reading. I don't read it very often, but I do see the headlines on posters in the train station all the time. It's just a coincidence that I happened to buy this month's issue. Are you not familiar with the Weekly 7? Never heard of it. Seriously? Her words stung a bit. The Weekly 7 is a famous gossip magazine that appeals to a wide age range. It's been around since the dawn of the Heisei era, from 1989 through to 2009, and it even shows up in TV commercials. It's been providing high-profile coverage of all sorts of issues. This is my first time meeting someone who'd never read it, much less never even heard of it. She must be living a life completely disconnected from the outside world. If only you knew, eh? Also, I'm sorry if you can hear a noise in the background. It's fan noise because I fucked up and left my blind open, and the sun came into my room and heated it up like a sauna, and now I'm dying. Weekly 7 is advertised pretty often on posters and newspapers, so you've probably seen it before. The logo has red text on a white background. Unfortunately, I can't recall seeing any advertisements like that. The woman in the kimono looked puzzled as she said that. How heartbreaking. I'm surprised you haven't heard of the Weekly 7. I guess you don't read many magazines? I wouldn't say that. So, that article is the reason all of you came here? Oh, no, it's actually just a coincidence that I came here. Me too, it's just a coincidence. The article wasn't the reason I came here. It seemed unnatural for both of them to declare that all at once. And even if it wasn't their primary reason, it would have been good social etiquette to just say, I read the article and it made me more interested in the place. So, Arakawa, I take it you came here to do some reporting? Of course, I started to mention the Occult Special, 2nd edition, but I cut myself off. Given that a group of strangers was gathered together in an abandoned building, the situation was occult enough on its own. And on top of that, all these people have a lifeless look in their eyes. They don't have the spooky eyes yet, but it's close. So you're a journalist? Seeing people like you gives me the urge to tell you to value yourself a little more. Thanks for the concern. That seemed like an annoyingly roundabout way of insulting my occupation. Then the woman in the kimono poured herself another cup of sake and pointed her chin towards the young woman. All right, you're up next, miss. Huh? Oh, my name is Tawada. The young woman looked a little embarrassed as she began speaking, so she lightly lowered her head. Yes, Yae Tawada. And the man sleeping over there is my companion, Takumi Kurosawa. As she said that, she turned back towards the young man sleeping in the corner of the room. He was apparently sleeping quite soundly, so there was no indication he'd be joining the conversation. Are the two of you married? Oh, it's not like that. We're not married. He's my boyfriend. I guess we're not quite there yet. Ms. Tawada bashfully waved her arms as she denied that implication. But she definitely said boyfriend. The relationship has probably been going on for a while. We drove here together. This is the first time the two of us have travelled anywhere on our own, so I'm just a little nervous. We came here on a one-day trip from Tokyo and Takumi was really tired, so he'll probably sleep for a while longer. Oh, and I'm not a student. I have a job, at least for now. It's very nice to meet you. Ms. Tawada actually said all that in a single breath. She sounded like an audience member on a variety show who was suddenly called onto the stage. I wasn't sure what I should say in response to Ms. Tawada, so Otobe and I simply lowered our heads a little to acknowledge the greeting. You drove all the way here? So did you come here on a date? Or is that weird? No, I just thought it was a little unusual to have a date in a ghost town where an entire village died. Oh, really? Ms. Tawada looked upset as she stared at me. Well, makes sense if they're the sort of couple who likes to visit occult spots together. There's plenty to be curious about here. But for some reason that just didn't feel right. She didn't look like the sort of girl who would go out drinking with a man in a place like this. Well, to each their own. But even if that means leaving your girl behind and passing out drunk, such a shame leaving a pretty girl all alone in a village like this. He must be an awfully careless boyfriend. The woman in the kimono slowly turned to the sleeping young man as she said that. However, Ms. Tawada simply gave a vague smile. It was kind of a long trip. Oh, that's fine. You should have a drink. Oh, sure. I haven't quite worked out my Tawada voice yet. As the woman in the kimono prompted, Ms. Tawada took a sip of her oolong tea. The liquor bottle was still over half full, and despite all the beer cans littered on the floor, only one had traces of lipstick coming off. The sake bottle the woman in the kimono has been guzzling down was only recently opened, so Ms. Tawada probably hasn't had much at all. Meanwhile, Tobe had anxiously been fidgeting his fingertips the whole time while listening to our exchange. Tobe, here, you should eat this. Oh, okay. Is this squid? What, you don't like squid? Not really. That's where you should eat it. Forcing yourself to eat something you don't like will allow you to appreciate it more. Uh-huh. Here, eat it. And here and here. Whoa. Otobe sat there bewildered as the woman in the kimono gently piled bags of dried squid in his hands. Thank you for the food. It's good. See? As soon as Otobe spoke favourably of the dried squid, the woman in the kimono gave a satisfied nod. Anyway, there was something warming about the way the woman in the kimono looked at Otobe. How on earth are the two of them connected? By the way, Otobe, are you into playing baseball or anything like that? Huh? I don't like exercise at all. What made you think that? That's one thing you don't have in common. I certainly can't picture you playing baseball. What are you talking about? I cut in on the conversation to ask her about it. Based on the way she was talking to him, could these two somehow be acquainted? No, I apparently reminded her of an old acquaintance. An acquaintance? So the two of you have a common friend, or... That's not it. The person I'm thinking of was a guy named Satoshi. But that was over 2 decades ago, and he died a long time ago. Based on the tone of her voice, she seemed quite fond of this Satoshi. I don't know much about him, but he seems like a nice person. Of course. I hate to say it, but he had a much more steadfast resolve than you. I'm sorry. By the way, how did the two of you know each other? We met shortly after I arrived in this village, so I don't really... Something about the tone of his voice irritated me. I'm not good at dealing with people who can't act their age. In fact, I straight up dislike them. So, what's your name? That's why my voice grew harsher, even though I knew I was being childish. Otobe jumped in a panic, then scrambled to sit the bags in his hands down on the tatami mat. Sorry for not introducing myself sooner. My name is Akira Otobe. I drove here too. He suddenly responded in a trembling voice, like a street interviewer had abruptly handed him the microphone. This guy too. Honestly, I find it hard to believe such a timid young man would come here all on his own. As I pondered that, Otobe turned to avoid eye contact and resumed fidgeting uncomfortably. So you drove all the way out here? On your own? No, well, things happened, and I got separated from my friends. Separated? Right. How? Despite my piling inquiries, he simply turned his head downwards and remained silent. This is bad. Maybe I came on too strong and questioned him a bit too harshly. With that in mind, I cleared my throat and began to say something to calm him down and urge him to continue. And then, on the way here, they all disappeared. Huh? The moment he said that, the assembly hall fell completely silent. They disappeared? What do you mean they disappeared? Hold on, why are you suddenly turning this into a ghost story? This isn't the place for something like that. That's not it. It really happened. Otobe slammed the floor with his fist and turned to me with a serious look in his eyes. Once I saw that, I stopped making fun of him and urged him to continue. Then, what do you mean? Explain yourself. We left Tokyo this morning and travelled all the way here through the mountains. A friend of mine handled the driving, so after a while, we came to a place with a nice view of the entire village. For people used to city life, the scenery certainly does look picturesque, as my dad would say. If they arrived in the afternoon when it wasn't raining, it would make sense to stop the car and take a look around. And while we were there, I decided to take a quick bathroom break. I went into the woods looking for a spot, but when I came back, everyone was gone. Even the car had disappeared. With so little context, the story was hard to believe. Besides, this sounds terrible to say, but is it possible that your friends left you behind? Maybe your friends were just trying to scare you. Huh? I don't know what kind of people your friends are, but maybe they're still hiding out there, having fun watching you scared and alone? It's not possible. Otobe smacked his dried squid on the floor and looked me directly in the eyes. My friends would never do something so awful. Now please, stop speaking so disrespectfully. Alright, sorry. No need to get riled up. Just throwing it out there, that's all. I didn't go far from the car, and I went straight back afterwards, but I couldn't even hear the sound of the engine. Otobe was so upset that his shoulders were moving up and down as he breathed. He seemed outraged by the mere suggestion of doubting his friends. Was that really something to get so mad about? Then the car really did disappear all of a sudden, along with your friends. It's a little hard to believe. I feel the same way. I don't understand the meaning of this. So I started to panic and ran around searching for my friends and the car. Then I slipped and slid down a cliff and lost my way. Mr. Wado and I remained silent as Otobe was getting excited right in front of us. He seems completely different from earlier, so I get the feeling he's not lying. What the hell is going on here? The next moment... The woman in the kimono lightly chuckled as she poured herself a third glass of sake. What is it? That sort of thing isn't a big deal. Huh? What is that supposed to mean? The three of us stared at the woman in the kimono, all at once. She gave us all a huge sweet grin, and then spoke. Apparently in the manga, I don't know if this was ever adapted into the anime, but in the manga apparently Otobe is the main character, and the character of Arakawa was invented for the game, I believe, or one of the characters, possibly multiple characters, were invented for the game version. I can't remember. Three of you weren't from this village, so there's no way you could possibly know. Uh-huh. I'm talking about Onigafuchi. Onigafuchi? As a matter of fact, I have heard of that. Indeed, it's a story passed down in Hinamizawa since ancient times. For a long time, people in this area have been known to suddenly disappear. This village came to refer to that as Onigafuchi, or being demoned away. But that's usually referred to as being spirited away. So why would they call it demoned away instead? Mr. Mada timidly chimed in with a question. But the woman in the kimono didn't answer and simply smiled to herself. The silence was growing awkward, so I jumped in to provide an explanation. Long ago, this village was referred to as Onigafuchi Village. Onigafuchi? Legends say the village was named as such because the bottom of the swamp was connected to the realm of the demons. The swamp was allegedly deeper than the ocean, a bottomless swamp where anything that sank within was swallowed by hell itself. Hence the name, Onigafuchi. Eh? So then, this name written here, Onigafuchi. That's right. The village's name was changed to Hinamizawa during the Meiji era. Up until then, this village was known as Onigafuchi Village. Upon hearing that word, Otobe looked up at the Onigafuchi Guardians poster stuck to the wall. Sorry, I just need to check an email super quickly. Okie doke, sorry. Important email. Otobe looked up at the Onigafuchi Guardians poster stuck on the wall. One day, demons emerged from the swamp one after another. Demons came overflowing from hell. The villagers believed as much, and they were absolutely terrified. The demons came forth from the swamp and attacked the villagers without mercy. The humans were powerless before the demons. The villagers were confused, frightened, and at a loss for what to do. They had no choice but to flee. If things continued like that, the village would be destroyed by the demons. But just as the villagers were ready to give in, a god descended, Oyashiro-sama. This god they called Oyashiro-sama was a compassionate deity. The demons ceased their attack on the villagers and bowed down at the behest of Oyashiro-sama's orders. And then they quietly returned to hell? It would have been nice if that was the case, but it seems the demons had circumstances of their own. These demons were allegedly exiled from hell and cried out to Oyashiro-sama that they had no place to return to. Across both hell and the human world, these demons had no place to call home. And so, Oyashiro-sama decreed that the demons and villagers must find the means to coexist. Oyashiro-sama gave the demons human form to allow them to coexist with the villagers. After that, the humans and demons mated, and this village came to be home to half human, half demons. I stopped myself right there, cleared my throat, and then continued in a low voice. But the problem is what came after that. Problem? These weren't just any demons. They were man-eating demons. No way. Even though they were given human form, they were still demons at their core. Deep down, their instinctual desire to hunt humans was still there, and that desire could be triggered at any time. Their blood may have been diluted by crossing with human blood, but that demon instinct was ingrained in their DNA. Yet it was impossible for them to openly cannibalize their fellow villagers. So they would come down from their hometown on a regular basis and... No way. They kidnap people? And rather than reply, I simply nodded silently. Indeed, based on how the story had progressed so far, it was easy to see the rest. In other words, the people who had demoned away were in fact victims of this habitual demon hunt. That was rather thorough, as expected of an occult writer. You've done an admirable job investigating. Why, thank you. Well, it's just as the reporter says. That's what being demoned away means. Being abducted by demons so they can feed on you? Well, something like that. Said that in the old days, the villagers of Onigafuchi descended upon human settlements and captured pitiful sacrifices by force. What happened to Oyashiro-sama? Why didn't Oyashiro-sama step in? The kidnappings were done with Oyashiro-sama's blessing. After all, Oyashiro-sama is the guardian deity of the village. If the villagers could live together peacefully, there wouldn't be a problem. But Oyashiro-sama recognized that these sacrifices were necessary for the humans and demons to cohabitate. That's horrible. Right, sorry, I need to respond to this. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, booking in to get a tattoo done, and the artist just responded to me, so wanted to get back to him now, because otherwise what happens is I go, I need to respond to that, and then don't for 3 days, which is what's happened before. So, all sorted. That's horrible. Having no choice but to sacrifice someone in order to keep on living. There is another story about the Watanagashi ceremony, which is held on the night of the sacrifice. But the wata actually refers to human organs. Well, I'm not sure how much of that is actually true. As soon as I said that, I took a deep breath and looked at everyone around me. Then, you're saying Otobe's friends were demoned away? As sacrifices to the man-eating demons? It's an unbelievable story, but if something like that were to actually happen, you'd have to believe it, wouldn't you? At the very least, Otobe's friends were involved with something mysterious that caused them to disappear. Hold on. We still don't know for sure. My friends are definitely still alive, okay? I'm sorry. That was careless of me to say. Sorry, that was a poor choice of words. This still isn't for sure. Otobe clenched his fists, then sat back down where he was, still possessed by excess discord with no outlet. In doing so, he seemed to recognize the futility of his behavior, and instead focused his energy on believing in their survival. About your friends, what kind of people were they? Let's search for them together, tomorrow. It's not necessary. I can search for them on my own. That's no good. These are your precious friends, right? You don't want them getting eaten by demons, right? Right. Miss Tawada meekly chimed in with a pale look on her face, and both her arms crossed. I guess she imagined the content of her earlier conversation. These friends of yours, you were close, right? Yes, I think so. However, Otobe continued looking down, trying to avoid eye contact. Come on, what happened to your enthusiasm from before? Otobe? Yes? What's wrong? You look pale. It's not like that. The woman scooted closer to Otobe on the tatami mat and said, Is that so? While giggling and pinching his cheeks. Could it be? Are you afraid of being demoned away? No way. Is that so? It's fine, it's fine. Well, it can't be helped. That's the situation we're in. It'd be stranger if you weren't afraid. After all, even if they're not nearby, there are plenty of people who died in this very village. Those words suddenly reminded me of the suicide victims I encountered earlier. Otobe and Miss Tuara both looked distraught as they turned their gaze downwards. Aren't you being a bit hasty here? Isn't it a stretch to suggest that his friends were demoned away simply because he got separated from them? Of course. He simply got separated from them. Isn't that right, Otobe? Well, you can't exactly walk home from here. Would you like to ride back with us tomorrow? That's okay. You don't have to... What's wrong? I said it was okay. There's no reason to hold back. No, really. Otobe stubbornly refused and hung his head. Was he just being timid, or was my kindness unwelcome? Mr. Arakawa, no need to be so pushy. While I struggled to size up Otobe's true intentions, the woman in the kimono interrupted. In this village, it's commonplace for people to disappear. It's nothing to get flustered about. And, well, I'm about done here. The woman in the kimono showed little regard for me. She finished her glass of sake, then quickly rose to her feet. And then she slowly began walking out of the hallway, towards the hallway. Hold on. I scrambled to get up and chase after her. Okay, sorry, I was checking the fan. I said, wait. What is it? I saw the pristine white nape of her neck from her loose collar before she slowly turned back to me. The gesture looked so unexpectedly beautiful that it didn't belong in this world. Also, the pristinely white nape of her neck is a hint to her true identity. This I did actually spoil for myself, I think. Unless I'm misremembering, in which case, never mind. What is it, you ask? You haven't introduced yourself. You're the only one who still hasn't, and you're the one I'm most curious about. A suspicious woman in a kimono, bathed in an unreadable aura, and she spoke of being demoned away, which of course only people from Hinamizawa should know about. Who on earth is this woman? The woman let out a small sigh, then turned her eyes my way. My name is Mio Sonozaki. I'm a resident of Hinamizawa Village. Okay. Huh? As in that Sonozaki? It doesn't matter which Sonozaki I am. This woman, Miss Sonozaki, quickly made her way down the hallway after saying that. The last name itself wasn't particularly rare, but within Hinamizawa it took on a special connotation. So I couldn't suppress my person for having met a person like that. I couldn't suppress my astonishment for having met a person like that completely by coincidence. Hey, is Mio someone famous? Famous doesn't cut it. The Sonozakis are a prestigious family in this area. They're one of the 3 families that once ruled Hinamizawa. That's ancient history now. Oh, Miss Sonozaki, where are you going? I have some business to take care of. Business? You're awfully nosy. I came here because I have business at the shrine. I'm not here to keep you company. Miss Sonozaki turned back and let out an exaggerated sigh. Then she stopped at the entryway and crouched down to put on her sandals. I'm not going far. My business is in a building right beside this assembly hall. Could it be in there? If that's the case, wouldn't that be a great opportunity? With that in mind, I rushed back to the assembly room, grabbed my rucksack packed with documents, and scrambled back to the entrance. Otobe was so surprised by my movement that he jumped. What's going on? I'm certain of it. The building behind the assembly hall is the ritual storehouse. It's the place where ceremonial tools are locked away. Ritual storehouse? That's right, the storehouse. It contains the tools used for festival rituals. The shrine priest of the Furude family managed it, and only a select few people in the village were permitted to enter. Allegedly, the tools used in the village's most secret rituals are held inside. If you're interested, you can come too, Otobe. Miss Sonozaki was already prepared to head out, and had her hand on the door as she casually looked back to make that offer to Otobe. Was that really okay? I don't mind if you come or not. I'm allowed to go too? If you insist. Why does she treat me so coldly? Then Miss Sonozaki turned towards Miss Tawada to ask her too. How about you? Coming? Oh, no, I'll stay here. Her response surprised me. Wouldn't it feel lonely staying in a place like this on your own? My boyfriend is still asleep. I think Takumi would be really alarmed to wake up alone in this room. Besides, after all that talk about people being demoned away, I just can't leave him here by himself. But maybe I'm overthinking it. I see. Miss Tawada gave us a sweet smile. I admired the courage behind that smile. I felt a little worried about leaving a young girl alone in such a massive assembly hall, especially a derelict shrine assembly hall within a ghost town. I was a bit envious of the drunken man with her, who knew nothing of her compassion. In fact, I was resentful. If I were Miss Tawada's boyfriend, I definitely wouldn't spend all my time in the liquor-induced coma. Wait, what am I talking about? She has the unwavering strength to stay here on her own. Otobe, you could learn a lot from her. I'm not scared or anything, okay? Oh, well, if you're not scared, then why are you making that face? It's not like that. Miss Sonozaki turned to Otobe and started teasing him, but he did his best to respond seriously. But the two of them were just so different. Miss Sonozaki pinched Otobe's cheeks, and then he immediately turned red and went quiet. Miss Tawada lightly giggled to herself as she watched the two of them. I think my boyfriend is going to wake up soon. Once he does, we'll head back to Tokyo right away. Is that so? Then I guess there's a chance you'll be gone by the time you get back from the storehouse? That's right. In that case, take care. Thank you for the meal and everything. Miss Tawada lightly bowed her head. So I guess she was the one who brought the snacks and drinks? Thanks, Miss Tawada. Later. Miss Sonozaki and Otobe made their way out of the assembly hall. I made my way to the exit, and then looked back through the doorway. Farewell. Miss Tawada watched us all as we headed out. After exiting the assembly hall, we pressed on through the shrine grounds. Though the rain had died down a bit, the ground was still muddy and difficult to walk on. Nevertheless, Miss Sonozaki continued walking forward without making a sound. Even though visibility was poor, she confidently stepped forward. Seriously, is this woman really from this world? We have a friend, and I have a distinct feeling our friend went to go get our luggage and then never came back throughout all of that conversation. I can't remember her name, but as that impossible thought came to mind, I quickly glanced at Miss Sonozaki. Preposterous. Something like that is completely impossible. Despite that thought, I couldn't help but feel suspicious as I gazed in awe at her skillful footwork. Just then, she suddenly came to a halt. What's wrong? Shh. Her piercing gaze signalled to me to be silent. Then I quickly glanced left and right. Got it? Don't make a sound. Sorry. Okay. Miss Sonozaki remained still, like she was waiting for something. I strained my ears, but I couldn't hear anything more than rain crashing down on the mud. Let's go. Once again, she began walking forward, but shortly thereafter she stopped again. Miss Sonozaki, what on earth is going on? I think someone is here. Uh-huh. Very close by. Is Mochibot dead? stream lives has crashed. That's what it is. Rain clouds blotted the entire sky, so the moonlight couldn't break through. I followed Miss Sonozaki's lead and listened carefully, but I didn't hear anything particularly unusual. Maybe it's a voice that only Miss Sonozaki can hear? Can you hear anything? Absolutely nothing. I started to smile with relief at Otobe's response, but just then I heard it. Footsteps? Something's out there. I told you to be quiet. Sorry. I'm kind of messing up. There we go, much what lives. My Otobe voice, so I apologise for that. As he continued apologising, he pointed his flashlight all around. The dense trees growing around the shrine were illuminated, one after another. Eventually, the light struck a wooden building shaped like a warehouse right in front of us. At a glance, I could tell it wasn't your typical building. It was so heavily decorated that all who stood before it would stand in awe. An impressive building. Is that the ritual storehouse? Hurting my eyes. He wobbled his flashlight left and right until the light finally caught the door of the ritual storehouse, and a dark-haired figure stirred in the middle of the circle of light. Otobe must have thought the same thing. He shook the light to be sure. Eventually, the light struck a set of pale lights and a familiar pair of jeans. Miyuki? Uh-huh. The person in front of the ritual storehouse door was Miyuki. Ryunosuke? When she recognized her, she lightly jogged over. Thank goodness. I got lost on the way back from the car. Lost? I got careless. I left the map in the car, so I wasn't sure how to get to the meeting place. Miyuki shrugged her shoulders to step out her tongue, but Miss Sonozaki stared coldly at the awkwardly smiling girl. Miss Sonozaki? So, did you bring the luggage? Oh, yes, unfortunately. She held up a sleeping bag and a large knapsack. Mio took a long look at the large bag, then frowned and spoke up. You've been lost for a while, haven't you? Eh? Your bags are rather soaked, aren't they? That's right. I'm not very familiar with this area, so I had some trouble navigating. Miyuki was acting a little peculiar. She said she got lost, but was that the truth? It was eerie how easily she was able to lead us to the 4-day shrine. So why would she have trouble navigating now? And more importantly, the assembly hall is directly in front of the shrine grate, but the ritual storehouse is deeper back and much harder to reach. Passing by the assembly hall and getting lost back here was completely impossible. Maybe she's been looking around out here the whole time, carrying the luggage? But why would she do that? By the way, Ryunosuke, what are you guys doing heading to the ritual storehouse? Well, Miss Sonozaki said she had business there, and I decided to tag along. That's amazing. I can't believe she would show you the ritual storehouse. Once again, my heart skipped a beat. Miyuki, how did you know that this building was the ritual storehouse? The way she said she would show you implied that she knew Miss Sonozaki was someone with the right to show people the ritual storehouse, doesn't it? What's wrong, Ryunosuke? You're staring off into space. Maybe you're running a fever? Silence. Stop making a fuss over there. Got it. Miss Sonozaki grabbed Miyuki by the shoulder and pushed. In response, she rushed over to the door of the storehouse. Otobe, aim your light over there. Okay. Otobe turned his light towards the storehouse in a panic. There was a heavy padlock hanging on the door of the storehouse. That's an impressive lock. Indeed, it's really old-fashioned. For the time being, I decided to pull out my digital camera and shoot some material, but Miss Sonozaki held up her hand and glared at me. Apparently she didn't want me taking photos. Can't be helped. But just being able to witness the interior would be a godsend. I'll just have to commit everything to memory so I can put it in the article. But it's locked, so I guess we can't enter. What should we do? Step aside. Miss Sonozaki pulled the string on the long tube she was holding under her arm, and what emerged from within was a handle. Huh? The silky cloth quickly fell to the ground as Miss Sonozaki grabbed the handle. Is that... Perhaps it really is one of those. Then Miss Sonozaki silently pulled it out of its sheath. What emerged was a very fine sword. Illuminated by the flashlights, a dull glow reflected off the blade. Just as I thought, the katana. Why do I... Why do you have something like that? Or rather, what are you planning to do with it? I mean, I got so excited I didn't know what to say. At any rate, what on earth is she doing out here with such a dangerous weapon? Arakawa, shut up and step aside. Alright. I jumped away from the door. Miss Sonozaki held the katana so the tip of the blade sat directly above the padlock. Mio? The surrounding air gathered around Miss Sonozaki. She closed her eyes, and in due time they opened once again. It's very bad for the sword doing that. I couldn't see it very well. Then I noticed Miss Sonozaki's katana pointed towards the ground, and the padlock, split in two, still rattling on the ground. The all of us stood around her stunned. Miss Sonozaki calmly stepped forward. And then, after taking a few steps, she casually turned back to us and spoke. How long are you all going to dawdle? Let's go. Okay. Wandering alone in the village like this in the middle of the night, wielding a katana and intent on coming to this very place. What on earth is she? Miss Sonozaki pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside the ritual storehouse while I stood there, lost in my doubts. It smelled of mould and dust, with an iron-like metallic stench mixed in. It's pitch dark, so take care not to fall. Alright. Otobe was shining his flashlight around, then stopped when he found a circuit breaker attached to the wall and reached out to it. I looked up to see several light bulbs hanging from the ceiling, but they must have all been burned out because not a single one lit up. The light from the flashlight should be sufficient. In fact, it's more convenient that way. Stepping in a little further, we found another set of doors. Miss Sonozaki put her hands on the door, and then abruptly started pushing it forward. The sound effects in this chapter are good and also really freaky. I could tell how heavy it was from how much she struggled to open it. Intending to help, Otobe and I put our hands on the door, and in time we heard the sound of the door opening. Whoa! My voice echoed. A room far larger than I expected was spread out in front of me, and at the same time, a foul stench reached my nose. The musky air was filled with a smell like rotting fish, and this thing right in front of us, is that Oyashiro-sama? A huge Buddha-like statue stood at the edge of the ritual storehouse. This is the guardian god of Hinamizawa? It's amazing. Taking a look at my surroundings, the walls, ceilings, shelves, everything was filled with various chisels and carpentry tools. Looking a little closer, I noticed a steel cage hanging from the ceiling and some kind of restraining device in the corner of the room. And on the table there were several chain restraint mechanisms. This is where the festival tools are supposed to be stored, right? But isn't it a little strange? A natural question, though the Watanagashi festival was always a little strange to begin with. When Otobe asked that, in a trembling voice, I responded as such and turned my gaze towards the carving knives, saws, and other large slicing tools hanging on the wall. The festival of Hinamizawa is said to have been the festival where the demons ate humans. Watanagashi, with wata meaning organs. It's a ritualistic ceremony of sending entrails drifting downstream. Huh? That's right. These aren't mere tools. They were actually used in the service of spilling human blood. These are those tools. Can't believe something like that truly existed. Miyuki examined each and every tool with sharp eyes. unlike Otabe, whose eyes wandered all around, trembling. So, all the tools in here were for killing people. In the folktale, the humans and demons were able to coexist. I guess this means reality wasn't so sweet. Miyuki said some frightening things in such a nonchalant tone of voice. While feeling surprised by her courage, I took another look at the tools. I could picture it clearly in my head. A human sacrifice enduring absolute torment while hanging on the border of life and death. I couldn't see a rational need for these tools to be created. But if these tools were used to butcher the sacrifice while they were still alive and prepare them for consumption, the elaborate designs and decorations all pointed towards a single purpose. In other words, the murders were carried out before an audience. And even the villagers must have found enjoyment in such a cruel sight. That thought made me start feeling nauseous. Ryunosuke, are you alright? I'm fine. Looks like you're totally cowering in fear. Miyuki put a hand on my shoulder to try and comfort me, but I just raised my hands and awkwardly laughed it off. After watching that, Miss Sonozaki turned around and continued searching for what she was looking for in the dimly lit room. This is the reality of being demoned away. Otabe, perhaps your friends are being butchered and eaten by the demons that abducted them at this very moment. Miss Sonozaki. Sorry, we still don't know that for certain. I could hear the anger in his voice from Sonozaki's imprudent choice of words. Then she shrugged her shoulders and carefully rifled through a cabinet. I never would have imagined anything like this. It's like they were doing it as a warning to others. A warning? Right. Listen to me, you'll suffer a horrible death. As a matter of fact, that's exactly it. There are specific rules the people of Hinamizawa are expected to follow, and the villagers who violated those rules were supposedly killed in a terrible manner to set an example. What are those rules? Well, they mainly exist to keep the village isolated from the outside world. Don't let others into the village and don't leave the village. The rules prevent the flow of people in and out of Hinamizawa. If those are the rules, then maybe they were established to protect the villagers with partial demon blood, like in the story you told us earlier? That might be it. Otabe quickly turned his head away as I agreed with his observation. It was a bit surprising, because up until now I didn't think he was a very reliable person. What were you talking about earlier? Oh, right. We had a conversation about the history of Hinamizawa while you were out, Miyuki. Was it the story about the alien parasites? Aliens? What are you talking about? Though the Miyuki said that with a jovial smile, Otabe responded in a hysterical tone. The tense atmosphere from a moment ago dispersed in an instant. Was that a weird thing to say? No, I've heard that story before. That theory recently made the rounds on the internet. What's this about aliens? They say that, in ancient times, aliens came to Earth aboard a flying saucer that landed at Onigafuchi's Village. The aliens control the minds of humans using parasites, and they've been spreading the word of Oyashiro-sama in order to maintain their way of life. Otabe stood there dumbfounded, with his mouth hanging wide open. Well, anyone would react that way the moment they heard something about aliens. How do I put it? You two really are occult writers, huh? Oh, hold on. I'm not one of those. Miyuki denied it with a bitter smile, as I shot Otabe a scornful glare. The way Otabe said really didn't sound like a compliment. Damn it, I know it's not unreasonable, but it's still frustrating. Look, it's not just crazy stories like that in here. There are other examples. Then I pulled out a scrapbook and flipped through it to find a more down-to-earth explanation for the theory. The sound of turning pages echoed through the ritual storehouse. According to that theory, the most powerful figures within the village were mind-controlled by the aliens, and they used them to bend the villagers to their will. I've seen people discussing that online. They also mentioned how members of the Sonozaki family tortured innocent people. Sonozaki family? You mean that Miss Sonozaki's family? Well, that's what they said anyway. Miyuki broke into laughter halfway through saying that. It was clear she didn't take the story seriously. But when standing among all these tools, it seemed misplaced to blame all those atrocious murders on the work of aliens. It wasn't a convincing story. Even so, once Otabe heard the name Miss Sonozaki, he began frantically looking for between Miyuki and Miss Sonozaki. Well, it's true that the Sonozaki family is one of the most powerful organisations in the village. That said... No way. You're saying that Miss Sonozaki is controlled by alien parasites? That's absurd. Otobe was looking pale until a little while ago, but a smile finally started to form on his face. Perhaps he thought the story far too ridiculous to be believable. What's wrong, Otobe? It was just kind of funny to imagine Mion as an alien. Mion? Right, Mion, Miss Sonozaki. Mion. Taken by surprise, I quickly flipped back through the scrapbook. Ryunosuke? Oh, hold on. No way, it can't be. Mio Sonozaki. That's it. I finally understood why that name stuck out to me. And there was no mistaking it. I definitely saw that name in the scrapbook earlier. My hand slightly trembled as I flipped through the pages. Otobe apparently didn't notice my agitation. He seemed to be relaxed and enjoying our discussion of absurd theories. No, monitor, behave. Sorry, I had to check something in Streamlabs. Outside theories. The stuff about aliens is a wild story. I don't know who thought it up, but it's just so crazy. But you know, there was actually someone out there who believed this story. A girl from this village held a school hostage, doused a classroom in gasoline, fought desperately to get more people to believe this alien theory. And her actions seemed to lay the groundwork for the modern alien theory. Right, Ryunosuke? Right. I briefly looked up from the scrapbook to make it look like I was paying attention. The police tried negotiating with her, but they failed. A massive explosion occurred within the school building, killing the culprit and all the students held hostages within. And then the very next day, the gas disaster occurred. By the way, there are rumours that this girl predicted the gas disaster as well. And there are still some doubts that the gas disaster was a natural disaster at all. Some of the more wild conspiracy theorists allege that a secret government organisation released the gas in order to annihilate the aliens. When you go that far out, it's impossible to keep up. Just then, Miss Sonozaki let out a stifled laugh. She was apparently listening to our conversation while rummaging through the torture tools. And then... So this alien parasite of yours probably possessed me too? What are you talking about? Quit joking around. That's right. I'm not actually me at all. The truth is, I'm being possessed. Miss Sonozaki's eyes glimmered in the dark as she let out a creepy laugh. She had a mysterious, terrifying visage, and an eerie shadow was cast behind her back. I felt an inhuman aura emanating from Miss Sonozaki as she turned her back to the statue of Ayashiro-sama. She looked like a demon herself. Indeed, juxtaposed with the fierce shadow of Ayashiro-sama, she looked inhuman. Please stop making these weird jokes. Otobe trembled as he exclaimed that with all his might. I, on the other hand, was too embarrassed to say anything at all. I took a step back and accidentally bumped into something, making me drop my scrapbook. Ryunosuke. Sorry. I bent down to pick up the scrapbook, but my hand suddenly stopped. What I found down there was the article I'd been searching for, and the name Mio Sonozaki was clearly written there. Hey, take a look at this. Ryunosuke? What is it? Miyuki, come here for a second. I took a quick glance at Miss Sonozaki, then grabbed Miyuki by the arm. Ryunosuke? Look, just come with me. I focused my gaze downwards to avoid making eye contact with Miss Sonozaki as I dragged Miyuki out of the ritual storehouse. Uh-huh. Mr. Arakawa? Miss Horimachi? Feeling left behind, Otobe began frantically looking around. And then Miss Sonozaki resumed hunting through the torture tools inside the storehouse. I found it. The thing I was looking for. The scroll. Miss Sonozaki smiled to herself as she pushed the pile of tools to her side to reach for the scroll. When Otobe saw that, he caught his breath and swallowed hard. Behind the scroll, the figure of a long-haired girl was reflected. Rika, thank you. Pardon me. Then the girl muttered something to Sonozaki with a thin smile on her face, before vanishing into the air. With this, everything is complete. The statue of Oyashiro-sama was standing behind Sonozaki, with a sickle in hand. In Otobe's mind, that sight overlapped with a vision of a demon slashing a human open in devotion to Oyashiro-sama. Arakawa! Saramachi! Otobe was short of breath as he came running out of the ritual storehouse. Miyuki, take a look at this. Outside the ritual storehouse, I spread open the scrapbook and held it up to Miyuki. Car outside says hello. It was a newspaper article from 1983, listing the victims from the school hostage incident. A list of victims? Well, what about it? Right here, take a look. I pointed at the list of victims from the gas explosion at the school. Satoko Hochu, Rika Furude, Mio Sonozaki, Reina. Miyuki's eyes fixated on a single entry. Mio Sonozaki. Huh? That's right. Mio Sonozaki. But no way. Why? It shouldn't be. I find it hard to believe too. But Miyuki kept silent and continued gazing at the scrapbook. Arakawa, Saramachi. Otobe ran over, then started to look perplexed. Perhaps he noticed the tense atmosphere around Miyuki and I. What's wrong? She's dead. Huh? I was frustrated by the look of absolute incomprehension on Otobe's face. Because Mio Sonozaki died over 20 years ago. Take a look. I handed the scrapbook to Otobe and pointed to the article. Otobe carefully looked over the page I indicated, and eventually he dropped the scrapbook, and Miyuki stared blankly at the ritual storehouse, making no effort to hide her bewilderment. I know it's probably just recycled assets, but that scrapbook does look a lot like a certain other one that we've seen. You know? What is a dead person doing here? Can't be true. That's impossible. If that's the case, then who is that person over there? A deceased person from this very village, guiding living beings into the world of the dead. The words from my father's diary ran through my head over and over again. No way. The dead are reaching out to the living? This village has something strange going on. Something that defies common sense. I tried to spin a few words, but nothing I said brought me any peace of mind. I've investigated many places as an occult writer, but this was a first for me. A village that's been blockaded for over 20 years, where the dead walk freely and the living can be demoned away in an instant. What the hell is going on here? Maybe I shouldn't have come to Hinamizawa after all. I knew nothing of the incomprehensible power at work within this village. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that just the truth, huh? Let's view our new text. There it is. Eventually I found a sword while searching through a shelf in the back of the ritual storehouse. A sword handed down through the Sonozaki family, the Tamahajiki sword. And that was the crucial key to finding the very thing that we were searching for. Still, it sure took a lot of trouble just finding the key. There should be a single scroll showing where the item is stored, but where is it? I wiped away the dust and carefully examined the item stored on the shelf. Although it would be hard to find anything in here with so little light. Maybe I should head back to the assembly hall? The moment I said that... What are you doing back here? I heard footsteps coming from behind and turned back, thinking it was Otobe and the others. Meep. Huh? Without a doubt, the person standing there was her. You! Are you looking for something? That's right. I'm having a little trouble. That answer was the best I could squeeze out. The more I tried to understand it, the more the shock and bewilderment showed in my face. Don't make that a scary face. I'd like to give you a little help. Look here. Uh-huh. Ah. And then, she rose up, smiling and laughing, as something suddenly rolled out by her feet. Looking more closely, it was a single old scroll. That's definitely what I'm looking for. I gently picked it up, then looked up to face the girl in front of me. The fear I felt a moment ago immediately faded away. Thank you, Rika. You've been a big help. And then Rika. She smiled as she passed by my side. And then... I'm going ahead. Huh? You need to end this quickly. There's not much time left. Then, once I came to my senses, I looked back, but nobody was there. That scene, it was like a dream. Then I understood. I knew. The reason why the girl who died on that day appeared before me. Thank you, Rika. Then I held my sword up high to express my gratitude to the empty room. That moment, it seemed like someone was laughing in the far corners of the darkness. I could feel it. Someone was laughing, eh? I'm gonna guess Hanyu, but... could be something worse, I suppose. So far, Hanyu's the only, supernatural figure that we've been introduced to, so... Right. It is 9:30. We are going to do chapter 4 and see how long that takes us. It took us just over an hour to do chapter 3, albeit with occasional stoppages, so we'll do chapter 4. When we get to the end of chapter 4, I'll see how I feel and what time it is. A piercing scream tore through the dark night and brought me back to my senses. That voice? Mr. Wada. We all left the ritual storehouse together and ran towards that voice. The voice didn't sound like it was coming from the assembly hall. It was in the direction of the shrine gate. We ran through the rain-soaked shrine grounds. Otobe held his flashlight up and pointed it towards the old shrine gate. Mr. Wada was alone, sitting on the ground with her back against the pillar of the shrine gate. Mr. Wada? Spooky eyes time! I knew it was coming, but it still made me happy. Mr. Wada slowly turned towards us. Her eyes looked vacant, like her soul was sucked out of there. Are you alright? Miyuki rushed over to Tawada and gave her a quick look to assess the situation. I don't see any external wounds. Does it hurt anywhere? Mr. Wada, what happened? I bent down in front of her and tried to ask her about the situation, but she just continued trembling vigorously. Mr. Wada? I had no idea what she was saying. I turned to Miyuki, seeking help, but she simply shook her head with a solemn look on her face. Massive tears were overflowing out of Tawada's eyes. Car is... Mr. Wada, get a hold of yourself. It's all right now. I was... Mr. Wada desperately tried to communicate something to all of us, but she couldn't get the words out. Miyuki put her hands on Mr. Wada's shoulders, but she continued trembling. Her delicate body looked like it was at the breaking point. What happened? The car... what's this about a car? Oh, right, where's that other guy? Kurosawa, or whatever you called him. Well... Mr. Wada couldn't bring herself to say it. She covered her mouth with both her hands. Mr. Wada? What happened to him? Oh, Mr. Wada? No need to rush. Before I realised it, Mr. Wada came down and knelt besides... Miss Sonozaki came over and knelt down beside Mr. Wada. She spoke to Mr. Wada in a more tender voice than I'd ever heard out of her. Relax. Now, slowly take a deep breath. Sonozaki... It's okay. You're all right now. There's no need to panic. Mr. Wada continued sobbing while Miss Sonozaki gently patted her on the back. Eventually, she managed to get her breathing under control, and then she squeezed out a few words. Demoned away. Uh-huh. Demoned away. Are you saying Mr. Kurosawa was demoned away? Mr. Wada deeply nodded in agreement. Then she tightened her lips and lowered her head, terrified of whatever event she had just experienced. So what happened? Take your time and tell us. When was Kurosawa demoned away? In due time, Miss Tawada finally started to calm down. She took a couple of deep breaths, then slowly began speaking in a fragile voice. Right after you left, Takumi finally woke up. We decided it was time to go home. And then, Kurosawa got drunk and slept for a really long time, but the two of them originally planned for this to be a one-day trip. Once Miss Tawada and Kurosawa left the assembly hall, they walked straight through the shrine grounds towards their car. I heard that you were all going to the ritual storehouse, so I thought it would be appropriate to say farewell. But Takumi looked upset somehow, so I didn't insist on it. I think he was probably just embarrassed about sleeping so long. Then Kurosawa took Mr. Wada by the hand, and the two of them walked right past the storehouse. And then the two of us came through this gate and headed down towards the stone steps. However, after ascending the steps for a while, they were shocked by what they found. The car that we drove here in had vanished. The car disappeared? Otobe gasped, then turned back towards us. Come on, that's just like what happened to Otobe. Demoned away? No way, was it actually demoned away? Well, we don't know that for sure yet. Maybe you were just mistaken about where you parked it? It's impossible. About this car. Miyuki stepped in to ask about the shape and model of the car. The description sounded like something we'd seen before. If that's the case, we've seen it. When we first got here, that car was parked at the bottom of the stone steps, right? Ryunosuke? Yeah, now that you mention it. There was a rental minivan parked at the base of the stone steps when we first arrived. I recalled the terror I felt when I first saw it, wondering if it was another suicide car. Come to think of it, Miyuki did give it a thorough examination, which means Mr. Wada's car must have still been there when she came back with the luggage. At least, that was assuming Miyuki was telling the truth. That was your car, right? But when I looked a little earlier, it was gone. The car was gone, and I didn't understand why. I got scared, and then Mr. Wada clung to her arms and trembled. And then I heard footsteps coming from behind us. Footsteps? Just then, I felt like I could hear someone's footsteps coming from behind me, so I quickly looked back. My monitor turning on and off is extra freaky at the moment. I have my light turned off because I have a 3 that it helps keep my room cooler, and also I just prefer not having the light on, just in general, unless I have to when I'm streaming. I usually have the light off all the time. But anyway, the monitors are providing like most of the light in the room, and then the second one turns off, and every time I'm like being about to be murdered. But no, it is just my monitor doing its funky thing. Footsteps coming from behind, so I quickly looked back. There was nobody there, just the falling rain. Even though there shouldn't be anyone else here, I'm certain I heard those footsteps. Signs of other people. It definitely, to me, just looked like her irises trembled. I'm absolutely certain they didn't, because of how the, like, assets of this game work, but it definitely looked like it to me. Footsteps came one after another, seeming to get closer to Miss Hawaii. And then I saw someone standing behind Takumi. I got scared and ran away. I ran up the stone steps in a daze. Takumi, run! In my daze, I kept on shouting that. But he didn't escape. It's not that he didn't try to, but rather than reply, Miss Tawada meekly hung her head. She tried to say something with her head still down, but struggled to find the words. Was she really at a loss for words, or did she just not want to accept what Sonozaki said? It's hard to tell. What happened to you after that? I ran up the stone steps and waited here for Takumi to arrive. I waited for a really long time, but he never came. There were probably circumstances that prevented him from coming to help you. Could it be he was attacked by someone in the shadows? Then he's already... We still don't know that. Mr. Wada responded without a moment of hesitation. We still don't know, but you wouldn't want to believe that for yourself, would you? That's right. That was all Otobe could say while delicately stepping back. I can understand how he feels. However, even if I couldn't believe Kurosawa was attacked, even if I didn't want to believe it was the only explanation I could think of. Have you considered that he might have run in the opposite direction? The opposite direction? Right. If he saw you running up the stairs, he might have chosen to run in the opposite direction to draw them away from you. So isn't it possible that he ran towards the village? That's not possible. Perhaps I should go check it out. After saying that, Miss Sonozaki began descending down the stone steps. Isn't it reckless to ignore the scary things that might be lurking down there? Oh wait, what do you mean you're going to check it out? I'm going to see if Kurosawa is wandering around down there somewhere. Well, guess I won't be needing this. Hold on to this for me. Miss Sonozaki removed the cloth from her scabbard and unsheathed the sword, then tossed the cloth and scabbard to Otobe. And then she quickly descended the stone steps with her unsheathed sword in hand. I have to say, the fact that she's walking around with the sword gives me confidence in her, you know? Please wait. It's dangerous to go alone. Oh, wait. Huh? 2 is better than 1, 3 is better than 4, and 4 is better than 3. Arakawa? Wouldn't it be safer if we all searched together? I did my best to disguise the pitiful trembling of my hands as I said that. I heard those unidentifiable footsteps too. If I was the only one who heard it, I could say it was all in my head. But now Mr. Wada has heard them too. And her boyfriend may have been demoned away by the owner of those footsteps. Whether that's the truth or not, I can't say for certain. Travelling with that many people will only cause trouble. I'll be fine, so there's no need to come with me. But don't worry. Mio Sonozaki flashed us a thin smile before finally disappearing down the stone steps. Ryunosuke, something's bugging me. When I reluctantly turned back to face everyone, Miyuki was talking to me with an unconvinced expression. What's wrong? When someone is demoned away, it's always one person dies and another disappears, right? That's true, but why bring that up? Because there still hasn't been a death, right? So maybe this hasn't been a case of demoning away after all? Miyuki said that with a serious expression. In other words, it seemed like she wasn't attributing this to a curse or other supernatural phenomena. Though it was hard to tell if she genuinely believed that, or if she was just saying that to comfort me. And to be honest, this girl was the most mysterious thing of all. She was far too knowledgeable about the history and geography of the village for someone who hastily prepared for the trip. Plus, when I stumbled on my belongings in the car, they looked wholly unsuited for magazine coverage. And even though this was her first time meeting Mio Sonozaki, they were both acting like they'd known each other for a long time. What's even more unnatural is that they seemed to know each other, but refused to speak even a single word of it. What is going on here? Who the hell is she? Ryunosuke, you alright? Your face is looking pale, you know. Arakawa? Even Otobe was staring anxiously at me. I'm fine. I was just a little lost in thought. Maybe it would be best to return to the assembly hall and take a short rest. I said I'm fine. Besides, you have a phone? Phone? Uh-huh. We should report the missing car to the police. But my battery is... Maybe there's still a little life left in it. Besides, Otobe, I noticed that your phone is the new M model that came out last spring. Huh? Otobe's shoulders suddenly started shaking. I had no idea why he looked so upset, but he was probably just a little scared. Or maybe he's just the sort of person who's always nervous. This guy's definitely got the Keiichi in him in the inability to read social cues whatsoever. Am I wrong? You're right, but even so. Which means it's the same as Sonozaki's. Really? I didn't notice that. That's an experienced reporter's power of observation for you. So, Otobe, if you swap batteries with Mio Sonozaki, you should be able to use your phone again, right? Is that so? You're right. Otobe's face didn't brighten up at all as he said that. What on earth is going on? No, that's not all. Come to think of it, when we first discovered the corpses in the car, Miyuki was hesitant to use her phone too. Miyuki and Otobe? Why are they both so opposed to using their phones? Huh? What's wrong? This is bad. Otobe turned to me with a sad look on his face after rifling through all of his pockets. Looks like I dropped my cell phone somewhere while we were running here. Huh? Sorry, I'll go search for it. As soon as he said that, he rushed back to the ritual storehouse. There was no time to stop him. Be careful, okay? And if you find your phone, call the police right away. Got it. With Otobe and Sonozaki gone, I was left alone with Miyuki and Miss Tawada. What's going to happen to the rest of us? I don't know, but it's clear that something abnormal is going on here. I can't believe this is actually happening. Meanwhile, Miyuki was standing underneath the shrine grate with her arms crossed. She bit her nails with an irritated look on her face, like she was thinking hard about something. Eventually, I heard the sound of footsteps on gravel and the rustling of clothing, indicating that Mio Sonozaki had returned. Nothing. There's nobody there. There was nobody else wandering around. And after a quick look, I didn't see any footprints or traces of blood either. Then Kurosawa really did disappear with the car. It's unfortunate, but that's looking to be the case. I looked around the surrounding area, but I didn't see any other cars either, and there were no signs of other people. Not even another car? Right. In response to Miss Sonozaki's words, Miyuki turned back towards me. Come to think of it, what about the car we drove her in? Miss Sonozaki, what do you mean there aren't any other cars? How far did you look? All around this area. If you want a more specific answer, I don't know for certain. Didn't see a huge four-wheel drive car? It shouldn't have been parked more than 500 metres from the base of the stone steps. A bulky four-wheel drive car? If a car like that was out there, it really would have stood out. Huh? Miyuki immediately dashed down the stone steps. That was Miyuki's car. If it's gone, we've lost our means to go home. Means to go home? Everyone around me looked terrified when they recognised the meaning of the word I muttered. Watabe's friend suddenly vanished along with their car. Mr. Wada's boyfriend Kurosawa vanished along with their car. When I put those facts together, I suddenly gasped. Watabe and Tawada had already lost their means to go home, and the two of them each lost their companions in the process. Miyuki? I rushed down the stone steps while shouting her name. Things play out according to the rules we've observed thus far. My companion, Miyuki, and the vehicle I came to the village in will both disappear together. Miyuki, please be safe. I struggled to step forward through the muddy ground. I ran so hard I nearly tripped over my feet. After pressing on for a while, I could make out her figure. Ryunosuke. Miyuki. I felt so relieved I almost ran up and hugged her. Hold it, control yourself. But contrary to the swelling relief in my heart, Miyuki had a troubled light in her eyes. What's the matter? It's not here after all. Not here? I mean, our car. Maybe it really was demoned away. Without our car, we're trapped at the shrine. There might really be a demon out there murdering us one at a time. Miyuki, don't say strange things like that. But even though we're alone in the village, the car still disappeared. No matter how you think about that, isn't that strange? Well, I swallowed my spit with one big gulp. After confirming my reaction, Miyuki continued. Maybe this demon might be one of us? The demon might be one of us? So you were suggesting that one of us might actually be responsible for these extraordinary circumstances? That did seem plausible. But if that's the case, who on earth could it be? I considered that. A chill ran down my spine the moment I looked Miyuki in the eyes. The emotion I perceived right there was suspicion and vigilance. Gotta be kidding me. Are you even doubting me, Miyuki? At the same time, I studied the cold look in her eyes. What did she mean when she said that? What should I do? What? Miyu, it's about time to head back. Right. Despite the anxiety and hesitation in my voice, Miyuki started heading back in the direction of the shrine. We remained silent the entire time, climbing the lengthy staircase. You didn't find the car? Miyuki nodded in response to Miss Sonozaki. It's a shame. So many friends being demoned away. Miss Sonozaki had an oversized warped grin on her face. Then she turned around and started walking towards the assembly hall. Wait. By the way, do you know what happened to Otobe? The moment she pointed that out, I said it to myself. Otobe? Come to think of it, he went off searching for his cell phone and still hasn't returned. Is someone up to something? What's going on? I still haven't fully grasped the situation yet, but it was clearly dangerous for one person to be moving about on their own. Otobe! I couldn't picture him as a man-eating demon out on the hunt for humans. So if he disappears too, then it would mean he was the next victim of being demoned away. Otobe! I'm here. Then, once he noticed us calling out to him, he came running with thunderous footsteps from somewhere not too far away. What's wrong? Oh, Tabe, thank goodness. Oh, seriously, thought you might have gotten demoned away too. Oh, really? Sorry for making you worry. Did you find your phone? Yeah. What's the matter? I found my phone, but it was weird. What was weird? Otobe's pupils shook back and forth. Come on, what is it this time? Arakawa, please, take a look at this. I only dropped it, so why did it end up like this? Otobe had out his cell phone as he said that. It was a flip phone, but the hinge was torn apart, and the LCD screen was smashed beyond repair. And 3 of the buttons were absolutely covered in mud. In other words, the phone was simply no longer usable. What is this? Naturally, I couldn't help but tremble. What does this mean? How did it end up like this? The only thing I can think of is that someone broke it on purpose. But why? Someone did this on purpose? It would have to be someone who knew it was Otobe's phone. Everyone remained silent. Without a proper understanding of the circumstances, you couldn't say anything. I am tempted to... So, we've had 2 sets of people disappearances and 3 sets of car disappearances, and the obvious answer is that it's Mion, because the first time around, one presumes he arrived here before we did. I don't know about Miss Tawada, her boyfriend, but my guess is it would be Mion. The second time around, specifically with Tawada and her boyfriend, Mion's the only person it could have been, because the 3 of us, unless she was, she did it and she's lying, the 3 of us were together outside. Like, Mion was inside the storehouse the whole time. So, question mark. And then, with our car, I don't know, because there was no point at which Mion wasn't there. My guess with our car, if it had to be one of the 4 of us, was that Miyuki was somehow responsible for it and is double bluffing us. But I don't know. I don't trust Mion Shion, just because really liking a character does not equal trusting them. But to be honest, I don't trust any of these guys. I don't actually trust us either. What are you all so scared about? You can always just buy another phone or 2, right? That's not the issue here. Shouldn't you know that better than anyone? Me? In this village, all communication with the outside world has been cut off. And those who try to make contact with the outside are killed in a miserable way. Haven't you heard that before? I held the broken pieces of Otobe's phone out for Miss Sonozaki to see. What? Are you saying I did this? That's not what I'm saying. But you must have realised. This phone was broken to keep us contacting the outside. This phone was a metaphor for us and was done to make an example. In that case, is this the curse of the village? After Otobe said that, we all fell silent. The next moment, Miss Sonozaki burst into laughter. Don't be ridiculous. Sorry, but I'm going to get some rest in the assembly hall. Miss Sonozaki grabbed the phone I was holding out, then walked past us and headed towards the assembly hall. Sorry, the thump you heard there was me bumping into my chest of drawers as I went across. I have these salted dark chocolate and honey graham crackers, and they are so good and they are so Moorish. I cannot stop eating them. Miyuki gave me an anxious look. Rinosuke, what should we do? What should we do? Should we head back to the assembly hall too? Yeah, but after everything that's happened, should we head back to where Mio Sonozaki was headed? As I pondered that, I felt somewhat lost. In the next moment, sorry everyone, this is selfish of me to ask, but would you mind searching for Takumi a little longer? Mr. Wada said that in a assertive tone, then promptly lowered her head. I'll search too. If we search this village all night long, I'm sure we'll find him. I'm sure of it. She sternly pleaded with us, betting on the possibility that he was still alive out there. I understand how much pain she must be in, but can I really believe that possibility? Please, Arakawa, please search for Takumi with me. Mr. Wada looked up at me and looked directly into my eyes. A powerful gaze emanated from her huge cat-like eyes, and I couldn't look away. In the end, I decided to. I suppose if we return to the assembly hall, we get murdered terribly. So we are going to search for Kurosawa. What I'm going to do is drop a save here, which will hopefully let me then reload this later and play through the other two bad endings, but we're going for the good ending first. Got it. Takumi Kurosawa, was it? I'll go see if he's around here. Yonosuke, is that really alright? Thank you so much. That would be a big help. Mr. Wada bowed her head, then started leading the way down the stone steps, but I started to wait to get her to stop. What is it? Tawada, why don't you head back to the assembly hall with Miyuki? Why do you suggest that? Being with girls might make it harder to move around. Plus, we need to be cautious now that we have a missing person on our hands. Mr. Wada appeared discontent. I understood how she felt. If someone important to me went missing, I'd want to go look for them too. But it's the middle of a dark night. Anyone going out in these conditions is likely to get lost, so it would be best to avoid causing another incident. Arakawa, what about me? Huh? Naturally, you're coming with me. Me? What are you so afraid of? You're mad, aren't you? But he hesitated as if to say he wouldn't dare plunge into danger head first. But despite the fact that he couldn't come right out and say, I don't want to go, really got on my nerves. But then, alright, Yonosuke, I'll go search for you. While Atobe was still struggling to answer me, Miyuki pushed him aside and stepped forward. She's seriously that bold? She's a courageous woman. Though, Miyuki, I need you to stay with Mr. Wada. Don't you think you'd feel more at ease if Miyuki was with me? That's true, but once Mr. Wada realised it would mean being left here alone, she gazed longingly at Miyuki. When Miyuki saw the pale look on her face, she acquiesced and said, You're right. Understood. Then let's get going, Mr. Wada. It's alright. As long as we stay together, there's nothing to worry about. Knock on wood. You're right. Lunch. These things are so good. I'm addicted. If the supermarket ever stops having them, I will die on the spot. Miyuki put a hand on Mr. Wada's shoulder as they walked to the assembly hall together. Mr. Wada was concerned about her boyfriend's safety. I totally understood that. But this task was far too dangerous to get women involved. Said in 2003, 4? Oh wow. If it's not too late, I'll ask the ladies for help after the sun comes out. Let's go, Atobe. Okay. I'm really struggling with this voice. Atobe reluctantly began descending the stone steps with me. The rain was still pouring down. The minivan that was supposed to be parked at the base of the stone steps really was gone. I stood in the spot where the minivan should have been and thought back. Miyuki and I came here right after discovering the car full of suicide victims. When I peered inside the car, I noticed something spinning by the driver's seat. What was it? Oh! That's right. It was a keychain. A keychain dangling from the keyhole. Wait. That means the keys were left inside the car? Might seem careless, so this is an uninhabited ghost town, so maybe Tawada thought it would be safe to leave the keys inside? But if she left the keys inside, someone would have been able to steal the car. Or was it stolen? Suddenly I became lost in thought. Come to think of it, Miyuki and I left the keys to her car inside too. Someone could have stolen it too. In other words, this had nothing to do with occult phenomena like curses or being demoned away. There's still a possibility that there are more people in this village than just us. Then who the hell could it be? For what? Was this a trap meant to lure us all somewhere? Maybe this really is the work of demons. Could it be the work of the dead meddling in the lives of the living? Cutting our means of escape and then strangling us to death? My thoughts were going around in circles. Just who was it that was alive in this village right now? I hit the limit of my reasoning. At this point, my thoughts become incoherent. Right. My thoughts went astray when I questioned if it was the work of the living or the dead. There's no way it could be anything besides another living person. It can't be. Just then, I heard the sound of a person approaching from behind. I heard a footstep, and at the same time I suddenly felt someone place a hand on my back. Just at that time, one of my flatmates came in and put something down on the table in the kitchen. I just heard this clunk. I was like, shit. I arched my back backwards while turning around. Otobe was standing there with his mouth hanging open. Arakawa? Or what? Otobe? Don't surprise me like that. Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you. But Arakawa, you came to a sudden stop and you looked upset, so I wanted to ask if something was wrong. It's nothing. Just a little lost in thought. Let's hurry up and get going. But which way should we go? An unpaved gravel road extended to both the left and the right. Left or right? I'm fine with either one. Otobe started walking to the left. Let's go this way. I reflexively grabbed Otobe's arm and started walking towards the right. Why did I want to go in this direction? Even I wasn't sure myself. But Miyuki and I originally came from the direction to the right, so maybe I just felt some desire to go back the way I came from. You want to go down this way? Otobe timidly followed behind me. No matter how far we went, I couldn't see anything but trees. It was just one long straight road. It was just one long road extending straight through a dense forest. Arakawa, Mion, went out searching a while ago, didn't she? If a local like Mion couldn't find anything, do you really think it's possible for us to find anything out here? I don't know, but do we really have any other choice? Kurosawa suddenly disappeared on us. It's true, but what? Otobe swallowed his words and awkwardly looked down. I had a good idea what he was trying to say. If Kurosawa was demoned away, there was nothing we could do about it. Anyone caught by the demons would simply be devoured and thrown away, never to be found again. Otobe's eyes seemed to say as much, and somewhere in my heart, I was thinking the same thing. It's nothing. Then don't say anything. After that, the two of us said nothing more. We simply walked down the muddy road. A dirt trail extended between the trees, seeming to invite us in. Should we head this way? Don't be stupid. If we head down a pitch-black trail like that, we'll never make it out, okay? Yeah. My flashlight could only illuminate the ground 2 or 3 meters from my feet. No matter how far we go, we're as likely to find a car or a person as we are to find a tanuki. I guess it's useless. Useless? Because even if we go further, we won't find anything. Someone dragged him into those trees. We'll never find him. And who dragged him then? Well, Otobe very quietly whispered the words demons, but I pretended not to hear him. In fact, it could have just been my ears playing tricks on me. Maybe he said something else. Should we head back to the assembly hall and wait for morning? Then it'll be too late. The man-eating demons might kill all of us in the middle of the night. Felt sick. Pleasant words, unpleasant thoughts spun round and round inside my head. It had become difficult to distinguish delusions from reality. There really might be demons out there. Or maybe not. Arakawa, it's impossible to keep going. Let's head back. Oh, we can't turn back like this. Why not? What's wrong with heading back? I've had enough of this. Otobe finally stopped. Otobe. I quietly clicked my tongue to myself. What a pathetic human being. If you value your life, then show some guts, damn it. You want to go back? But do we really have no choice to go back? Otobe was acting confused and indecisive. And so, I started getting irritated and glared at him. As soon as I did, he started to look upset. Even if we keep going on, I don't think we can do anything about it. I'm starting to feel the same way. Well, what should we do? I think, though I had an umbrella in hand, my pants were still soaked with mud and rain. Plus, my hands and feet were freezing. The two of us suddenly spoke up at the same time. Let's turn back. Let's keep going. I had to sigh at our completely contradictory decisions. It's tough working with someone of a different disposition. Clearly, we made a terrible team. Still, I didn't have the stomach to handle the situation on my own. Tobe probably felt the same way. So my decisions had just as much weight on my partner as they did on me. Even if we go any further, it's just a waste of time. That doesn't mean we can just go back to the assembly hall and quietly wait to die, right? Even if our phones can't connect, we can still walk to the police. Okonomiya is not too far away from here. Not too far? But we're travelling by foot, aren't we? Keep hearing sounds and I can't tell if there's a soundtrack or outside, so spooky. I also thought it sounded reckless. But what choice did we have? That's right. That moment I felt inspiration like a divine revelation. We can drive there. In what car? Otobe began to furrow his eyebrows, but I continued. I am going to drop another save here. Both of these lead to the same outcomes. So, well, I'm gonna go for broke. The suicide party's car. Whoops, then click back into the game. Otobe's shoulders trembled in revulsion as soon as I suggested it. I don't want to. I'm not riding in a car full of corpses. What other choice do we have? Plus, if we drive there with the corpses, the police will be able to start examining them immediately, killing two birds with one stone. That's absurd. I won't go along with this. Certainly was an absurd idea. I agreed with that. But people have actually gone missing, and we've been experiencing curse-like phenomena. Seemed like a much better option than sitting idly and doing nothing. Let's go see if we can get the car moving. Then we'll figure it out from there. I told you, I don't want to. This isn't the time to be selfish. The place where we found that car must have been... Arakawa, that's enough. For a moment I was overwhelmed. I never would have expected Otobe to object in such a forceful tone. This is serious. We're far better off waiting here for the police to arrive. I refuse to accept that plan. Otobe stood in front of me with both his arms spread wide. The ferocity of his opposition was rather odd. In fact, it was downright suspicious. Why? Because that's the place where they committed suicide, right? I think it's a bad idea to move it before the police have had a chance to investigate. I don't want us doing weird things that will give the police reason to suspect us. Is that it? I felt relieved to hear that was his reason for refusing, then pushed his hand aside and started walking. It'll be fine. They won't get upset with us as long as we explain to them that it was an emergency. It's unacceptable. I refuse. Regardless of if they get upset with us or not, what if they get the wrong idea and find us suspicious? Plus, isn't moving corpses some kind of crime? Sorry, I'm no expert on criminal law, but it's an emergency. Even in the worst case scenario, they'll grant us extenuating circumstances. Extenuating circumstances? A crime is a crime. This isn't a joke. I don't want unnecessary things on a criminal record. What we were just discussing was a worst case scenario, right? That's not necessarily what's going to happen. That's true, but then it should be okay, right? If you understand that, let's go. Wait! I shook off his grip on my hands and started walking, but he moved in front of me to block me again. But isn't the car full of carbon monoxide? If we ride in there, it will poison us too. It'll be fine. All we need to do is wait for it to ventilate. Plus, we can drive with the windows open. The windows are all sealed shut. Do you really think you can open them so easily? What? My ears immediately twitched at something he said. What was that just now? Hey, Otobe. What? Based on what you said just now, it sounds like you've seen the car yourself. Uh-huh. I did tell you earlier that they committed suicide using a charcoal burner, but I don't remember talking about the inside of the car. And more importantly, I never mentioned that the windows were sealed. Otobe gasped and turned to look away. He knows. This guy knows something. That's not true. I've heard about other similar cases before, and they're all like that, right? Well, you're right about that. Fine then, you can wait here. I'll go alone. Arakawa. As soon as I started to walk off, he frantically grabbed my hand. I see. I was planning to bluff him by hiding the fact that we broke the windows, but it seems I was right on the money. I was slowly starting to understand why he was so vehemently opposed. Hey, Otobe, you're hiding something, aren't you? I have nothing to hide, but the important thing is borrowing the car they committed suicide in is blasphemy against the dead. Blasphemy against the dead? I was completely dumbfounded by that entirely unexpected answer. Blasphemy? What is this guy talking about? Right, they may be dead, but they're still human beings. We need to treat them with respect. And yet, you want to cart them around and transport them to the police like luggage? That's disrespecting the dead. That's a valid point of view. In that case, Arakawa, if you understand that, then you can go on your own. But either way, I won't be going. Otobe released my hand and started heading back the way we came. He wasn't being prideful or stubborn. He was acting completely childish. Hey, Otobe? This is Hinamizawa, you know? Swarming with the spirits of the dead. I don't want the curse to kill me too. Whatever. Then I'm going on my own. I started walking as I said that, but before I made it 10 meters, I stopped. Otobe was acting particularly stubborn. His reactions felt like a person being persecuted. This guy didn't just see the suicide car. I'm confident he knows something about the victims too. But what? I had no idea what he was hiding. I turned and pointed my flashlight back towards the way I came, and watched his back as he began walking towards the shrine. Once again, I illuminated the other side of the road with my flashlight. The pitch-black road went on, straight ahead. The suicide party's car should have been here earlier. Otobe's voice echoed inside my head. This is Hinamizawa, you know. It's swarming with the spirits of the dead. I don't want the curse to kill me, too. The spirits of the dead? Well, maybe he was just afraid of travelling alone. And with Otobe stubbornly refusing, it meant I'd have to travel alone, too. And more importantly, I understand. I turned back and followed after Otobe. Then I walked up side by side with him and apologised. I agree with what you said. We shouldn't use that car. It's okay, you don't have to force yourself. I'm not. Anyway, I did have another thought. Miss Sonozaki drove here too, right? In that case, why don't we use her car? Ah, right, that's right. We can use Mion's car. Otobe donned a cheerful expression and quickened his pace. Between this and the suggestion to use the suicide party's car, the difference in his reaction felt like night and day. I sped up to keep pace with Otobe and carefully examined his complexion. Anyway, I wonder where Miss Sonozaki came from. Seems like she travelled here alone. No idea. She's dressed in that kimono and everything, so I assume she came from somewhere nearby, like Okonomiya. Well, that sounds about right. We walked at a quick pace. Heading back the way we came was far faster than travelling into the unknown. Still, that was careless of me. I should have thought of that right from the start. Mion's car should be safe to use. So what kind of car was Mion riding? I wonder. Otobe's footsteps got lighter. She drove here alone. Huh? Wait a minute. If that's the case, then where did she park her car? Miss Sonozaki definitely told us she had business to attend to at the Fude shrine. If so, it would make sense to park on the street somewhere close to the stone steps. And yet, we didn't see a car anywhere around there. This lured leads to the shrine, so we're on a direct path there. Miyuki said as much. It's a single straight road. So isn't it odd that we never saw Miss Sonozaki's car? Something unpleasant stirred inside my chest. What's wrong? Seems like you suddenly lost your enthusiasm. About Miss Sonozaki. Did she actually drive here? Huh? I'm wondering if she came here in a car at all. What are you saying? If she didn't take a car here, then how... Then, after I said it, Otobe caught his breath when he realised when I was going. No way. If Miss Sonozaki was a roaming spirit who wanted this village, then she wouldn't have needed to take a car here. She was waiting here in this village to devour us. It can't be. It's absurd. Otobe stood there dryly laughing to himself, but there was no laughter in his eyes. He probably has the same suspicion I did. However, it was far too implausible to actually speak it out loud. Well, that's true. But it's hard to imagine a spirit sharing a drink with us, so maybe we're overthinking it. As I said that, I recalled what Miss Sonozaki said back at the ritual storehouse. That's right, I'm not actually me at all. The truth is, I'm being possessed. At the time, she had a strange, otherworldly aura. But no way. Could Miss Sonozaki really be a spirit? My thoughts started going in circles. There was something there, but I couldn't understand what. Enough. The more I think about it, the worse I feel. My suspicion is she snuck in at some point, despite the lockdown, and has been living here, off the grid. So I decided to bring up another topic to change the mood. Hey, Otobe, now that you brought it up, where did you come here from? Me? I'm from Tokyo, but Arakawa, aren't you from Tokyo too? That's right. I thought so. Arakawa, you totally seem like you're from Tokyo. Were you born and raised there? As soon as the topic changed, he returned to a relaxed, casual tone. People become talkative when they want to hide the things they're ashamed of, especially in stressful situations. Yeah, but I live downtown, so it's separate from the city's chic atmosphere. I'm originally from Wakayama, but I've been trying my best to get rid of my accent ever since I got accepted into university in Tokyo. Wow, so you're a college student, Otobe? He fumbled over his words for just a moment, but I didn't miss it. That's right, and you're a popular writer, Arakawa? That's amazing. Otobe quickly changed the subject. He didn't seem all that interested in discussing his college. Well, I guess I'll let it go for now. It's not that impressive. Not sure anyone said I was popular, but I do make a living off of it, so I think it's legitimate work. I read your articles in the Weekly 7. They were really interesting. I mean, the stuff I read was creepy, but still interesting. Thanks. Have you been writing occult stories for a long time? I wrote on a variety of topics when I first started, but I focused on occult subjects for the past few years. When you first started, were you working for a publishing company or something? You could say that. That's nice. Did you enjoy it? In its own way. So what do you plan to do after you graduate? After graduation? I haven't really thought about it, but publishing company does sound pretty good, huh? This should have been a carefree topic, but when my flashlight periodically illuminated the side of Otobe's face, I could see a silly stream of sweat dribbling down. How do you know it's not rain? And I don't think he's sweating because of the heat or humidity. This was the greasy sweat of a person struggling to keep something hidden. And his non-stop chatter made it abundantly clear he had a secret to hide. Tobe, we're almost at the shrine. He cut me off, then fled up the stone steps. He's definitely hiding something, and I'm sure it's related to the suicide party. Those doubts nagged at me as I climbed the stone steps, watching Otobe's back. We are going to tackle the next chapter. I don't know if I'll do the whole thing, but I might try and get to like a good cliffhanger in it. Oh, what's wrong, Chiaki? Hey, Machi, check it out. Doesn't it look like storms are coming? Maybe so. Chiaki was leaning practically sideways to peer out the window, so I looked up at the sky. And she was right about that. The sky was looking a bit dark. Still, the sunset was able to paint a wide area in a bright, median hue. It was beautiful. Hey, Akutagawa, can I open the window for just a sec? Yeah, sure. The driver, Akutagawa, undid the lock. Then I opened the backseat window. I guess we are Machika. As soon as I did, I could hear the faintly echoing chorus of the Higurashi, and a cold breeze blew fresh air into the car. Beautiful. I could never see anything like this back in the city where I lived. This was the great big sky in the truest sense. There were no annoying buildings to block the view, and the glow of the sunset was able to reach everything I could see. Hey, Chiaki, take a look over here. Isn't it a fantastic view? Yeah, it truly is. She smiled bitterly as she looked up at the sky from behind my back, and I could feel the loneliness in her voice as she said that. The Higurashi are singing, the birds are flying, and the trees are massive. I can hardly believe there's a ghost town out there. Oh, ghost town. Hearing those words reminded me of what we came out here to do. That's right. Nobody lives out here anymore. Hey, Otobe, do you know why nobody lives in the village anymore? Well, I don't know. I just know some magazine listed it as an occult spot. Otobe was sitting in the front passenger seat, gazing at the outside scenery as he gave that heart-hearted answer. Somehow, he didn't seem all that interested in the place where we were headed. It seemed like his thoughts were elsewhere. How about you, Chiaki? Same here. I don't know much. Just that there was some terrible accident a long time ago. I see. So you youngsters don't know about the Great Hinamizawa disaster, do you? Akutagawa, do you know something? Happened about 20 years ago. Caused a major uproar at the time. Uproar? I leaned forward and looked at the driver's seat. Akutagawa continued to focus on his driving, but nodded at me through the rear-view mirror. Before the disaster, Hinamizawa was just a small Japanese village of no particular interest, but everything changed in June of 1983. What on earth happened? Toxic volcanic gas was released from a swamp in the middle of the night, killing the entire village while they slept. And in that single night, over 2,000 people had their lives taken from them. Anyone who saw the unthinkable, horrific state of that disaster with their own eyes must have been terrified of the destructive power of nature. Japan has always had a lot of volcanoes. Even though volcanic zones can have periods of inactivity, there's no guarantee how long it will be until they release their fury. And geologically speaking, it's difficult to find a region that doesn't have any poison gases lurking underground. So it was natural for people to think it could happen in my town too. And as a result, cases of people suffering severe anxiety continued to pop up. But that wasn't the only cause for commotion. Relatives of people from Hinamizawa Village believe that the gas disaster was caused by their local god, and they started a commotion about the curse of Oyashiro-sama. And then the people who were afraid of the curse started acting possessed, engaging in strange behaviour, and involving surrounding people, in some cases even carrying out bizarre murders. Those incidents only exacerbated the fear and anxiety that people were feeling at the time. The curse of Oyashiro-sama? Right. And the people responded to that with an overblown, nationwide movement to disparage the people from the village. In reality, this social ostracizing was based on mere rumours, but largely cut those people off from future prospects. Even now I've heard stories about people from the area struggling to find employment or marriage. It's like a witch hunt. Exactly. And Hinamizawa was at the heart of the entire uproar. That's why it became a literal ghost town. The village was erased from Japanese history. The bliss I was feeling until a moment ago was cast aside, and so I closed the window. Something about the air started feeling wrong, and I suddenly began feeling nauseous. Even afterwards, there were still random, isolated bursts of gas. It took over 20 years before the blockade on the area was lifted. I think at this point it's finally gone. It seems unreal. A beautiful village was completely smothered by toxic gas, and it happened recently too. I can hardly believe it. I remembered something when you called it a ghost town. Just then, Atabe spoke up while playing with a cell phone in the passenger seat. This village. Apparently ghosts appear here. The villagers were killed in the middle of the night, in the blink of an eye, so they're spirits. I see. Indeed, if they died so quickly that they didn't even know what was going on, their spirits might appear without ever knowing that they died. But that's alright. No matter what form they take, it's better than never seeing them again. A village of the dead, huh? I wonder if only the spirits of the villagers who died here can come out. Can they not come here if they died somewhere else? Machi? Enough of that. Either way, I'll meet them soon enough. I'm sure I'll see everyone soon. Dun dun dun. Also basically confirming that Atabe was with the suicide party. The other one is newspaper article. Around 4 PM on the 24th, 911 operators received a message stating several gunshots were heard in the university hospital parking lot and a woman had collapsed. Emergency responders transported the victim to another hospital, but she was already comatose and in critical condition. It was later discovered that the woman visiting the hospital was Mio Sonozaki, the acting head of a regional mob organisation known as the Sonozaki Group. The Metropolitan Police Department is investigating the incident as an attempted murder. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government is also investigating its relationship to a series of conflicts over the Sonozaki Group's succession, following the death of the group's leader last year. According to their investigation, the acting Sonozaki head was shot from behind at close range, and the bullet went through her left breast. Several shell casings were found at the crime scene, so the Metropolitan Police believe the assailants were armed with automatic handguns. After the shooting, a man of around 30 years of age was seen fleeing the scene in a white car. The man was dressed in a black suit and hat, with his face obscured by sunglasses. When Metropolitan Police searched for the fleeing vehicle, they found a car matching the witness's description in a convenience store parking lot, approximately 1 kilometre north of the crime scene. Police believe the man escaped from there after switching to another car. Which sucks ass for Akane, because I really like her as a character. She's really great. It's like, fuck that cult business. Let's be in a gang. Right. Let us continue. We'll keep going for about another half hour, or until we find a good cliffhanger. The lights in the assembly hall were shining bright. When I entered the room, Mr. Wada and Miyuki were sitting across from one another. How did it go? Mr. Wada asked with a stern look on her face. I had no choice but to quietly shake my head. Is that so? In the end, you couldn't find him? Right. We searched far and wide, but it was pitch black out there, so we couldn't see anything. Toby and I were discussing the possibility that he might have been dragged into the woods. Dragged into the woods? By who? Well, I mean, I don't really understand that myself. The conversation was sounding sour, so I sat down on the tatami mat for the time being. I wasn't sure what else to tell her. Takumi is definitely still alive. Of course. Though I said as much, I didn't believe it. I gazed at the tatami in front of me and pretended to think about something to avoid making eye contact with Miss Tawada. I wasn't sure why, but somehow I had the feeling Kurosawa was no longer alive. But I realised now wasn't the best time to say it. Finally learning some tact. I decided to set it aside for now. The rain and mud caked hem of my pants uncomfortably clung to my legs. Tawada, we'll search again tomorrow morning. So, we can't do that. Huh? If we don't tell the police everything that's happened today, things will get bad. Cars have gone missing, phones have been broken, and people have started to disappear. Given our current situation, are we even sure we'll survive until tomorrow morning? That may be true, but even so, Otobe began to mumble something. I still wasn't sure what he was trying to hide, but this wasn't the time to get into it. Anyway, I think we need to notify the police today. It's an abnormal situation, no matter how you look at it. But there's nothing we can do to contact the police, right? Actually, I thought of a way just a little while ago, and in order to do that, I need to ask a favour. Miss Sonozaki, would you lend us your car for a little while? My car? Miss Sonozaki, who was listening to the conversation from a short distance away, suddenly raised her head in surprise. Right. If I borrow your car, I should be able to drive straight to the Okonomiya police station and talk to them directly. I think that's a much better plan than waiting here overnight. So you do have a car, don't you? There's no way you walked all the way here, through the mountains, dressed in a kimono, right? Ryunosuke, that's not the way to ask for something. The last sentence was essentially my way of asking, you're not a ghost, right? I'm well aware that I won't get a straight answer if I ask that directly. Miss Sonozaki may have laughed, but her face looked dead serious. She stood there without moving a muscle, and the sword still hanging in front of her chest. Why is she reacting like this? Maybe she really isn't a human being, but a ghost? So, where did you park your car? On the road in front of the shrine, near the base of the stone steps, on the side closer to the village. Huh? Otobe turned to me as soon as he heard that, and then he whispered something so quiet that only I could hear it. Harakawa, doesn't that sound a little weird to you? What is it, Otobe? We did all that walking earlier, but there were no cars anywhere to be seen, right? That's right. I parked it somewhere out of sight, in a place that ordinary people would never notice it. Miss Sonozaki fixed her threatening eyes straight towards mine. That moment I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Impossible thoughts began taking concrete shapes inside my head. Miss Sonozaki didn't actually drive a car here, did she? Mio Sonozaki was supposed to be dead. But if the person standing before me was actually a ghost inhabiting this village, that explained everything. If she was a ghost, it wouldn't be unusual for her to be walking around this village. In other words, Miss Sonozaki didn't come from outside the village, so she didn't need a car. What is it? Something odd about what I said? Something odd? What are you saying? There are so many odd things about you. My palms were drenched with sweat, and my throat was painfully dry. Though I had more to say, my throat felt so strained I couldn't use it. My nervous system was shattered by the extreme tension. Can I ask one more thing? Go ahead. You really did come here from elsewhere, didn't you? Arakawa, do you think I'm some kind of ghost or demon? I couldn't respond. It was clearly just as she said. If she was a ghost, she shouldn't have any legs and wouldn't make sounds while she was walking. But none of those indicators were present. I quietly stared at her while she stood there motionless. No matter how hard I looked, I couldn't discern anything about her true identity. But there was nothing else I could do. Ryunosuke? What's wrong? You look like you're thinking pretty hard about something. I heard Miyuki's anxious voice from somewhere far away. I guess it really shows on my face that I've been lost in thought. My throbbing heart gradually returned to normal. For a moment I was at a loss for words, but I boldly spoke up anyway. About Miss Sonozaki's car. Are you sure she really has one? What an idiotic thing to say. How would I have gotten here if not in a car? You seriously going to suggest that I walked several kilometers down mountain roads, dressed in a kimono and sandals, just to come to this deserted village? I didn't think anything of the sort. However, what if she was in this village from the very start? That's right. Miss Sonozaki was here the whole time. So in order to disguise that, she had to refuse the request I made earlier. Letting me borrow her car was an unreasonable request. The idea that Miss Sonozaki was a ghost repeated over and over inside my head, and it was getting stronger and stronger. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to actually scroll back up. She didn't deny him though. I just wanted to double check that to make sure I hadn't missed it. What should I do now? Borrowing Miss Sonozaki's car was no longer an option. I had to come up with another plan. In the end, was walking the only option? Down Mountain Road with no streetlights on a night like this? Fine. I just have to lend you the car, right? Uh-huh. Miss Sonozaki abruptly rose to her feet as she said that, then began carefully walking forward. Car really exists? That can't be. Restlessness consumed my heart as I watched her walk off. Given the current situation, there was a distinct possibility that she would never return here again. Was she trying to escape somewhere on her own and leave us behind? Was she keeping us confined here, intent on picking us off one by one? Miss Sonozaki, you're coming back, aren't you? Once you get your car, you're not going to leave us like this, right? No, you're awfully distrusting. If you're that worried, you can tag along. How about it? Want to come with me? Uh-huh. I was completely baffled by Miss Sonozaki's offer. Unbelievable. I never expected she'd ask me to come along. So what on earth am I going to do? Feeling lost, I turned back towards Miyuki. She looked dazed for a moment, but then her eyes widened and she nodded to me. I'll wait here. Mr. Wada, I think it would be best for you to rest here a little longer. Don't you think? Really, it's fine. Let's stay here together. The two of us can wait here until Ryunosuke and the others come back for us. Okay. Mr. Wada appeared vexed by Miyuki's suggestion, but she nodded in agreement. That's right. What about Otobe? I stole a quick glance at him as I pondered that. He was irritatingly indecisive, but the fact that I instinctively wanted to know others' opinions might have shown that I wasn't that great at making decisions either. Sure enough, he was looking back and forth between myself and Miss Sonozaki, at a total loss for what to do. Hurry up and decide before the sun comes up. I'm going on ahead. You guys do what you want. Miss Sonozaki slipped on her sandals, popped open her old-fashioned umbrella, and started walking towards the shrine gate in the pouring rain. Miss Sonozaki, need to make a decision. I called out to her from behind. And... whoops, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to save. Hang on, I have a distinct feeling. Okay, hang on. I'll wait here. I'll wait. Very well. Whoops. How about you, Otobe? You were still hesitating, looking back and forth between Sonozaki and me. And then, I'll stay here too. Very well, that's good. Just after saying that, she slipped off her sandals and returned to the assembly room. Miss Sonozaki, hold on to this, just in case. Miss Sonozaki pulled something from her kimono and sat it in my hands. It was small, cold, and surprisingly heavy. I looked down at my hands, trying to discern what I was holding, and then froze. What is this? Why a handgun? Just a precaution. If something happens, you'll be prepared. If something happens? Like what? When the time comes, you'll understand. What are you talking about? I wonder. I hope you won't have the opportunity to use it. Sonozaki apparently had nothing else to say, so she walked out of the assembly hall bursting with laughter. Miss Sonozaki! I looked down at the gun in my hand. This isn't a toy, right? It's a real gun? I'd seen and heard about them many times in fictional contexts, but this was my first time holding a real one. After holding a gun for the first time, it felt much heavier than I imagined. Why would Mio give you something like that? Hell if I know. Otobe's voice trembled as he stood next to me. I squeezed the gun and gave him that curt reply, then returned to the hall. Rinosuke, so you decided to... Huh? Miyuki and Ms. Tawada both gasped when they saw what I was holding. Why do you have a gun? What's the deal with that? It's not mine. It's Miss Sonozaki's. She asked me to hold on to it. Miyuki was staring me down while I gave that dejected answer. Ms. Tawada looked frightened too, timidly peering at me the whole time. Well, that seemed like a natural reaction. Why does Miss Sonozaki have something like that? Dunno. What happened with Miss Sonozaki? She went to get a car, alone. Is that so? Rinosuke, you feeling alright? Miyuki stared at the gun in my hand for a while, then turned to me, Whoops, I was doing the wrong voice. Turned to me with a concerned expression. What do you mean? It's nothing. If you're feeling alright, I'm glad. Mouse, stop being... We all returned to our previous seats without saying anything more. What was Miyuki trying to say? Can Rinosuke handle a gun? Was that the meaning behind her, are you feeling alright? I'm fine. I'm familiar with guns. Well, from movies and manga anyway. I gazed down at the gun in my hand. The safety was still engaged. How do I unlock it? Well, I'll figure it out somehow. I considered trying it out, but stopped. Good, sensible. I didn't want to misfire and cause another miserable accident. In the end, I'm probably just scared. Miyuki's concern wasn't unreasonable. Is it real? Why would you give me a toy at a time like this? Right. Tobe anxiously stared at the gun in my hand. I wish Sonozaki had given him the gun instead. In that case, I'd be half teasing him, half making jokes in a panic. How far do you think she's going? Dunno. She should be back soon. She just went looking for the car. Then, why did she leave Arakawa with a gun? I have no idea. She told me I'd be prepared in case something happens. In case something happens? Like what? Don't ask me. She wouldn't explain anything to me. The questions were starting to annoy me, so I stood up with the gun still in hand. Where do you think you're going? The bathroom. I rushed out of the assembly room. I'd rather not use this thing, if at all possible. I mean, is it actually the real thing? The gun in my hand was starting to feel like just a toy. If I pulled the trigger, a stream of water might burst out. I wanted that to be the truth. My thoughts continued to focus on Miss Sonozaki as I made my way into the cobweb-littered background. If she is actually dead, if she's the ghost of a demon that wanders this village, that's absurd. The extreme weight of the gun brought me back to a more realistic train of thought. This gun was strong evidence against the theory of Mio Sonozaki being a ghost. She was the spirit of a demon living in Hinamizawa. She wouldn't have a gun. Could see a spirit wielding a katana, but not carrying around a gun. Although I should cast away my preconceived notions. Still, if she had it this entire time, couldn't she have easily killed people? The people who made our cars disappear tried to make any trouble. She could have simply shot them with this. Or was it supposed to be a challenge? Try fighting me with that gun. I wonder how you'll die. Could that be her reason for handing me? Ridiculous. Even after all that thought, I still didn't understand anything. I took a deep breath and peered through the small bathroom window. The shrine grounds were pitch black, so I couldn't see anything. At least that should have been the case. Oh. What? However, what the shit? Contrary to my expectations, there were people just outside the window. And not only that, but our eyes met. They stared at me for a little while, but as soon as I started to move, they quickly ducked down and disappeared. Every drop of my blood in my body froze in an instant. My heart started pounding. I didn't have the courage to shout, "Who's there?" at my adversary. Top of that, my legs were frozen. Get a hold of yourself. What are you doing? There's someone out there. I tightly clenched the gun in my hand. My palm was dripping with so much sweat that the gun was likely to slip out at any moment. I cautiously peered out the window once more, but it looked like nobody was there anymore. When I gazed into the darkness, the signs were still there. All I had to go on was the light leaking out from the assembly hall window, but I desperately kept a lookout. How long did it take for my eyes to adjust to the darkness outside the window? 5 minutes? 10? Apparently we're in chapter 6 now, which is Otobe's secret. Darkness outside the window. 5 minutes? 10? In reality, it was probably just a minute or less. In the shade of the trees, I can make out 5 or 6 people. Away! I gently exited the bathroom and headed back to the assembly room, careful not to make any noisy footsteps along the way. Every floorboard that sank under brittled away at my nose. Miyuki and the others were still sitting in the assembly hall. Inosuke, what's wrong? Miko called out to me in a dubious voice when she noticed me quietly tiptoe into the room. It might have actually been a perfectly ordinary voice. Miyuki knew nothing of our current situation, so she should have been rather carefree. Arakawa, do you have an upset stomach? Idiot, that's not what this is. Once I realised how loud I was getting, I quieted down in a hurry. Otabe's relaxed tone irritated me, but it made me realise he was doing nothing more than talking normally. Calm down, calm down. You alright? What is it? Apparently it looks like we'll get some use out of this thing after all. Uh-huh. Then, I quietly told everyone about the people I saw outside the bathroom window. I couldn't see very well, but it looked like there were 5 or 6 people inside. I'm trying to work out who they are, because if it's people who disappeared, there should only be 4 of them. Otabe's 3 friends, who we found dead, and Kurosawa, who has disappeared. So I don't think it's them. You're sure they were actually human? What is that supposed to mean? They were the spirits of the dead, coming here to demon away all of us. Then guns would be useless against them, right? I'd be stupid. That's not what this is. What makes you so sure? You said you didn't get a good look, right? Alright, I'll listen. But even then, what can we do? Assuming they're actually spirits or whatever. Are you suggesting that our only option is to lay down and die? That's what I'm saying. Maybe... That moment, Miss Tawada was sitting with her knees around her arms around her knees. Geez, not her knees around her arms. Quietly muttering something. They might have been the same ones I saw. Uh-huh. Just a little while ago, I saw them. Some dark, mysterious people close to the shrine. And then I got scared. Miss Tawada looked terrified, like all the blood had drained from her face. Her eyes were black with red, and her teeth were chattering. Someone telling a lie wouldn't react that way. Then it settled. Uh-huh. Miki reached into her knapsack and pulled out a dark-coloured object. Then she quickly rose to her feet and looked down to me as she spoke. I'll go check it out. Yunosuke, can you back me up? Uh-huh. What? For a moment I wasn't sure what she meant, but then I was shocked when I noticed what the dark object in her hand truly was. The thing she was holding was a gun? First I thought she'd taken it from me, but then I verified the gun Miss Sonozaki had given me was still in my hands. Which means it must belong to her. What's with that gun? I'll explain later. Let's get going. Miyuki ignored my question and quietly ran towards the entryway with her gun in hand. I was surprised again by how quickly her body could move. Miyuki, who on earth are you? Miyuki's gun clicked as she disengaged from safety in the shadow of the doorway. I was surprised once more by how skillfully her hands moved. I tried to follow her lead and undo my safety, but I couldn't get it off. Hand it to me. She grabbed the gun from my hands and quickly flipped for safety. Here. Thanks. I grabbed the gun as I said that and held it tight. If I pull this trigger, it'll fire a bullet. A bullet that can kill anything it hits. Once I realised that simple fact, the weight of the weapon felt even heavier. Sweat came pouring out of my entire body. Arakawa, are you alright? Otobe came rushing towards the entrance. Miyuki quickly grabbed him by the sleeve and moved her lips close to his ear. What? You can help too, alright? Me? With what? Toby, as soon as I open this door, I want you to turn on the lights in the shrine glass. It's one of those switches, so keep flipping until they're all on. Eh? Okay. After saying only that, Miyuki put her hand on the door and listened carefully. 3 to the right, 4 to the left. Huh? She can piece together the enemy's whereabouts from just that. Her eyes were piercingly sharp, like a wild beast preying on men. Pretty certain she is Akazaka's kid. Miyuki, what on earth? We'll talk later. Please focus on what's right ahead of you. Ryunosuke, let's go. And I, folks, I'm going to save here and end the stream because this is, to me, a perfect cliffhanger. So I am going to end stream off here. I am going to say thank you very much for watching. It is very, very much appreciated, and I do hope that you enjoy it. I will be streaming Neo Replicant this Saturday, where we are going to be doing the facade side quests and then heading off to the Forest of Myth. Then on Sunday it'll be Destiny 2, where we're going to be checking out Season of the Slicer, the new content, completely new to me. I probably won't have time to log into Destiny before Sunday, so let's do it. Next Tuesday will be Final Fantasy XIV, where hopefully I will be less stressed, horrified and overwhelmed by deadlines, and will actually be able to stream the whole time and actually catch our shot up on the MSQ properly. And then next Thursday will be more Higurashi When They Cry, Yoigoshi, where we are going to see who these mysterious figures are, and I am not going to spoil it for myself. I desperately want to find out, but I'm not going to spoil it for myself. Okay friends, take care. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, and I do hope that you enjoyed. Do have a wonderful evening and be excellent to each other, and I shall see you guys on Saturday.